thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying back. Thank you for joining. And the purpose of the breakout room is to really just to divide people into a smaller session so that, everybody's got a chance to speak up. And, there will, in general, be a open discussion looking at your day-to-day concerns regarding traffic, safety, and transportation issues along East Avenue. And I believe Ruta has covered that this first housekeeping items, but let me just reiterate, you guys are not able to speak right now. If you're trying, you're still on mute, and what I'm gonna do is we want to ask you to use the raise hand feature. And Ruta has gone through that part already. And once you click on the icon, you will be instantly sent to queue. Ruta will be monitoring the queuing and lowering your hands and mute you so that you can speak up. For those who are dialing in from their mobile phone, star 9 is your key to raise hand or lower hand. Star 6 is again to mute or unmute yourself. And again, we want to ask you to be brief and concise since we have a great group today. Our ultimate goal is to have everybody to have a chance to at least say something. If you have any additional comments or suggestions or concerns that you cannot think of at the time, or you cannot speak at the moment, you can leave, type it out down at the chat box, and we'll be monitoring that. And again, all of these will be documented, including the video, the audio, as well as the chat session. All right.
Ian, would you like to introduce
Sure.
you, me, and Carlos so that they know? Just a quick introduction.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. My name is Ian Lin. I'm with the consultant team, TJKM, and same as Ruta, the main presenter. And we're a bunch of traffic engineers and transportation planners on behalf of the city working on this project. And in the room, we also have Carlo San Diego from the city. We're just here to listen to you, taking notes from you so that we can digest, go back before we conduct any further analysis. Yep, and again, we want to, in order to, have a more organized note-taking for our purpose, we divided the segment into 4 distinct segments. First segment is Livermore Avenue to Estates, and then you have Estates Street to Madison, followed by Madison to Mines, and lastly we got Mines to Vasco. We do want to go segment by segment, so I guess here is your time to start raising your hands, and we want to start talking about segment number 1, which is again Livermore Avenue to Estate Street, closer to the downtown area. Right.
Ian, would you like me to share the screen if you are having trouble doing that, or?
Sure. Yeah, that will be. I could be the one monitoring the hand raise and lower.
Sure. Just give me a second. I do have Suzanne who has raised her hand, so let me start with that. And if you can just...
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are. Hi. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for being here. I think this is really important. Carla won't remember this probably, but we've actually spoken several times. I think it's really important in general. This isn't about which segment, but in general, I think it's really important to remember that when we talk about bicycles, we're talking about transportation. So it's not a bike path, it's a bike lane. And when we talk about breaking up, you know, you're in, imagine if you were driving down East Avenue in your car and you got through that horrible intersection at 4th that leads into East. And then you're on a 1-lane road for a while, and then suddenly the paving disappears and it's a dirt road with potholes. And then the paving comes back, but it's only 1 lane, and somebody put a giant sign in the middle of it. And then all of a sudden you've got a lane again, and then there's a light with no place for you to get from the right-hand turn lane to the going straight lane. Just imagine that. If you were in the car, you would think of that as being an urgent problem of transportation, not, oh, it's just a bicyclist, so, you know, they need 3 feet and then we're fine. But, you know, if you eliminate bicyclists, that's fine because we all have cars. You know what I mean? It's transportation. It's not just a bike. And now you're going to want to unmute me.
No, thank you, Suzanne. We will definitely take your point into consideration.
It's a perspective issue.
Right.
And it would affect every single other decision that happens. I've commuted by bicycle for, oh gosh, I don't know, 30 years, you know, for my entire life. And I also have a car, and I also drive sometimes, but I also buy groceries in my bike. And the problems are just, it's sometimes hard to convince people how serious the problems are because they've never ridden a bike. But most bicycle riders have driven cars. So there's a communication disruption. And I think language is really important. I think if we call it a bike path, that sounds like la-di-da, it's a path. You know, if it floods tomorrow, it's no big deal. We'll just walk on it day after tomorrow. But if you've got to get to work, you've got to get to work. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
We will make sure that we have some balanced striping, which leads to the lanes properly. we do get it. Thank you, Suzanne. I would like to give an opportunity to, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right. Aiden, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'd like to say thanks for holding this. It's good to be able to give some input. I also want to say I agree with, I guess, pretty much everything that Susan said. I also bike, back when I was going to work regularly, I would bike almost all the time. And there is a large section of East Avenue that doesn't have any sort of bike lane or bike anything. And even the sections that do, it feels a little risky. And so, yeah, so if so far containing this, we're talking about the first segment, that is part of the part that doesn't have any sort of bike accommodation. So
That's correct.
pretty much anything that would be an improvement.
That brings a question in our mind is, as you know, most of the times on the corridors, we do have right-of-way constraints, right? And so do we on East Avenue also. There has to be balancing among the modes. And if I were to ask you, if the bicycle facility is important, and it is for everyone because I bike too, would you be okay to take away a lane? Would you be okay to take away parking? Or would you be okay to reduce the travel, like, we can reduce only to a certain width? If we can, we have not yet started looking into it, but we want to know from you, what would you be able to give away from your side? What is that you would like is okay to give away?
So like, what you mean, what sort of stuff would be okay to take away in order to add to the bike
Yes.
bike sort of area.
Yes.
Well, I don't live along East Avenue, so I'm not sure how essential parking is there. I do see plenty of cars often parked along it, but I don't know. I feel like pulling out into traffic would make me nervous, but so I don't know how necessary that is. It does seem like East Avenue is pretty busy in terms of taking away a lane. I'm not sure. You probably know more about how that would affect the traffic flow.
Okay.
But so I don't think I'm in a great position to weigh these concerns. But I do think that that making it defining some way that would not increase the amount of traffic too much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. The next person in line is Donna.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I live off of East Avenue. We're off of Hillcrest, kind of in the middle of segment 2. We're a family that bikes to work. We work at the labs at the tail end of segment 4. We have a 4-year-old who bikes to the daycare in the middle of segment 3, who's zoned to go to the elementary school in the middle of segment 3, the middle school in segment 2, and the high school in segment 1. So, we also go downtown. And we have a downtown that we really enjoy that we don't want to drive our car to. We would rather bike from the middle of segment 2 to downtown and avoid all the cars and all the parking and just live out of a bike, basically. And so for us as like mature adults commuting to work, we avoid East Avenue until essentially Robert Livermore Park. And then we hop on the bike lane there to, just kind of worried in general.
Right.
And then as far as kind of forward planning our 4-year-old's kind of future life, we're just dreading him on a bike in anything segment 3, 2, or 1. It just seems like he's just going to get crushed by a car because we've already had a couple of fatalities down on East Avenue in segment 2, some years back, just with pedestrians crossing. So I think you asked for vision earlier. What I'm supportive of is reducing the quantity of lanes to reduce the traffic. I find that people speed. So if they became narrower lanes or even reduce the lanes to 1, that might slow people down. And if we removed parking or reduced kind of the width of parking to do some beautification to also kind of slow things down, especially as we approach downtown and kind of the Livermore Avenue in segments 1 and 2.
Sounds good. And if you were to give away something, what would that be?
I mean, yeah, just as the traffic, I know East Avenue is a big thoroughfare. It's been around since kind of the founding of the city. So that's why you have that kind of crazy, awkward intersection. I think we're just I'm comfortable with saying, I guess people commuting to 580, stop using East Avenue as your freeway traffic to get to another freeway, find another freeway to stay on and stop driving through my town. It's a little ragey, but that's kind of where I am. And then just as a kind of an aside for, as an option for the parking, I know there's houses there. People like to park their cars in front of their house. There are concepts for protected bike lanes where maybe we move the bike lane next to the sidewalk and we use the vehicles themselves as the protection. So you're kind of driving in between sidewalk and a car. Those would be options that at least maybe would be a good compromise for those homeowners.
Sounds great. How about, having parking for certain hours in a day? Because when we look into the parking data, sometimes there are corridors that, you see that parking is full towards the end of the day, in the evening. Would you be would you be okay with repurposing the lanes, using it as bike lanes, or until around 8-ish at night, and then repurposing that lane to parking?
I'm not against it. I think I'm more worried about maybe an enforcement of that. You're I think you're asking homeowners more to say, like, you can't park your car in front of your own house for certain hours. And do we have parking enforcement that's going to go ticket them, which just seems really complicated. Certainly from a safety perspective, I guess that's a way you could still maximize 2 lanes of traffic. But I think I would rather opt for just either narrowing the lanes or reducing the lanes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I do see Era.
Ian, we have David first on the list.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Hi, David.
Hi, I live
Thank
off
you for
of,
participating.
oh, thank you. I live off of Almond Avenue and I commute to the lab every morning. I want to acknowledge the city has a very tough decision here to deal with, with the traffic for lab employees. That's a main route. The bicycle safety is a big issue. I've got 2 younger kids. I would love to be able to go downtown and do festivals and stuff down there by hopping on our bikes and doing it. It's just not safe. I don't feel comfortable. I really think we need a protected bike lane that goes down there. I'm just wondering, has it been thought about using a 3-lane road and take it from 4 to 3 and using the center lane that changes direction depending on traffic needs? The city of Santa Clara did that around the university.
Okay, that's a good suggestion.
So that's pretty much the only other thing I could say is the amount of traffic coming down Almond off of East Avenue to the daycares is pretty bad, especially with commuter traffic. I think we need a signal there so it's easy to make a left turn.
What's that intersection? Could you please repeat that, David?
Almond and East Avenue.
Oh, okay.
Right in front of the firehouse.
Okay.
So that's pretty much my comments.
Before we have Era, let us know what her concerns and comments are. I would like to ask, would any one of you be okay to wrap up when we go back to the main room? We want to have one participant kind of give a gist of what we talked about in our break room. So could one of you please do that for me? And if yes, could you just give me a thumbs up so that I know whom to nominate? If you guys don't, then I will nominate someone. Okay, Donna, could you do that for me, please? Let me unmute her first. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Donna. Appreciate it. Finally, Era, your turn.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the city for hosting this great meeting so far. Our family lives along East Avenue, and the way I see East Avenue is that there's a lot of family-friendly amenities there. You've got the community center, you've got the daycares, you've got the school.
Yep.
So I think it's a no-brainer to continue the bike lanes, since that is an amenity that would serve all families, children and adults. It also helps employees who I see often biking to the labs. But I think besides the transportation and safety features of a bike lane, I see it as a beautification feature. If you look at East Avenue coming from Vasco through the fire station, it's beautiful. You feel safe. You want to walk it, you want to ride your bike, and you want to take your family there. From the fire station that intersection close to downtown, it looks scary. It doesn't look safe. It tells you stop walking here, pedestrians. It is not a pedestrian friendly area, and it's not bike friendly area. So it's almost like you have a world apart, you know, in one single segment of a street in Livermore. So for me, you know, East Avenue, bike lanes, beautification purposes, safety, pedestrian safety, as well as transportation improvement. As far as what I'm willing to give up, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what the impact will be about removing an actual full lane, but I'd be happy to see some major improvements, such as removing a lane, if that's what's needed to get a bike lane there.
Great. Great input. Thank you. Thank you, Ara. Any other comments, concerns? Any specific segments you want to talk about? Overall, since we do have time, what are the other than bike lanes? I know, you know, bike lanes are really very important. What are some other improvements that you want us to look at holistically through the corridor? Like, are you satisfied with the pedestrian facilities? Do you think that you feel safe crossing the roads? Are there any other improvements you would like to see, like, you know, bulb outs, or you mentioned narrowing the street widths? Anything else? Are you concerned about anything else?
I see you again, Donna.
Yep. Let me unmute her.
Hello again.
Hi.
I think, you know, just kind of off the top of our heads over here, when there's the pedestrian crosswalks, there was a time when there was the blinky lights that were actually inside the ground, and they got replaced with the lights that are just by the signs or up above. And I felt like that made the crosswalk less safe. So if we could go back to having the blinky lights in the ground, that would be nice.
Donna, the problem with that was that, and Carlo, correct me if I'm wrong, first of all, replacing and maintaining those lights are very, very, you know, difficult to do. We do have vendors, but those lights frequently go bad, and keeping on maintaining them is an important task to make sure that the effectiveness of that stays throughout. So, and Carlo, if you would like to add something else from city's perspective.
Yes. We looked, Donna, when those things first came out, they're like the next best thing after sliced bread. Everybody wanted it, and we experimented on that. We put them out there. And then, like what Ruda was saying, they would last maybe 2-3 months because they're exposed to loading of the vehicles. They'll keep breaking. Each one of those cans is about $800. Just the can itself doesn't include the installation. And the biggest issue that we have found are the first vehicles leading in a pack of vehicles, a platoon of vehicles. They're the ones who see the lights blinking. So they slow down. The following vehicles don't necessarily see those. So they just are astonished, like, why are the vehicles in front of us stopping? So it could actually, you know, this likelihood of increased rear end type collision. And it's only the first few vehicles in front that could respond to it, as opposed to the signs that when Ruda was explaining a while ago, the RRFB, it's called the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. It really grabs your attention, and they're at least 7 feet, 8 feet above the ground. So they can be seen from a distance. So those are the few advantages. That's why most cities who had those in-pavement flashers, they all started getting away from that and started using the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. I hope that answers your question.
Hi, Carla. I appreciate the rationale for why the city moved. You know, it's a little challenging as a National Lab employee. Like for us, we're kind of coach. Safety is the #1 priority. And so what I would caution is if we reduce the frequency or the quantity of lanes, you're reducing the number of vehicles, which means you're hitting less impact on those little LEDs. And also in segment 2, I believe maybe a couple weeks after the city removed the LED lights in the street, there was a fatality of a pedestrian who got hit by a vehicle. And you can drive down that segment 2, I think it's right next to the church. This was a mom, and you could still see flowers there every single time you drive along East Avenue because of that. And so I think to kind of amplify the comment earlier about beautification and, you know, just having people, you know, recognize that there are still people living there. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the spot. Actually, where the trees are on the western side of Jensen, you could just cruise on over, take a look.
Well, actually, can I respond on that one real quick, Donna? The fatality, that's a very unfortunate event. But the details of it, actually, the incident did not happen at the crosswalk. The pedestrian was crossing. Can you go to that's the site, that's the memorial, because that's where the body ended. But the accidents happened somewhere around, it's 100 feet east of Jensen. So it's mid-block, the pedestrian device was not activated. It was at night. There's a lot of details involved, but it was actually 100 feet east of the crosswalk. I think that's what the police report said. And again, the device was not a factor in that incident because they did not cross at that area.
I do have David raise his hand.
Yeah, I was just, the crosswalks across East Avenue are not paired with traffic signals, so it's hard to get you know, drivers' attention. I'm wondering, would it be better to put some type of curb? I don't want to say cut, but a little curb that pops out, so when people are standing there to cross, they're at the plane where the parking stalls are, so they're not, you know, 8 feet back. That way they're more visible before they cross and push the button across.
We can definitely do that, David. They are called bulbouts or curbouts, and that really helps, like you were saying, to make sure that the pedestrian crossing that crosswalk is a little bit more visible to the drivers. So we will definitely try to see where could we incorporate those.
Okay,
And
because I
we'll
think the
bring
one
some
for the
options to you.
yeah, I'll say the one down by the junior high is like mid-street, and I think that'd be an easy one to do, especially one that's used so heavily.
Sounds good. Next person on is Suzanne.
There. Yay. So I think that Donna and Ira, or is it ERA? I don't know if that's your initials, so I apologize if I'm mangling your name. Both addressed this issue, but when we talk about transportation and feeling safe, it is true that end of East Avenue up toward the lab feels open, spacious, beautiful, safe. And when you get into the first 3 segments, it feels hot, dry, dilapidated, you know, it just doesn't feel as safe. And I think if we just made the bike lane continuous and planted some trees, made it feel loved, it would change the entire, it would just change the mood. And when you change the mood, maybe people will slow down. I am all for making cars slow down, whatever it takes. And I kind of wanted to respond a little bit about the person who was hit and the crosswalk issue. It is never, ever, ever okay to hit somebody with a car. It doesn't matter if they're in a crosswalk or not. It doesn't matter if they're on a bicycle or not. It doesn't matter if they're old or young. It's never okay to hit a person with a car. And if a person crossed the street outside of the crosswalk, you know, maybe that's not the safest way. Maybe this is somebody, I don't know her story, but I do know that it's never excusable to sort of dismiss her death just because she wasn't in a crosswalk.
I totally agree. Every life is valuable.
Yeah.
We have, there is no excuse. I'm sorry if I came across like we're minimizing it. What we are doing is we can only do so much, right? We have to have a shared responsibility.
Absolutely.
The city can do certain things. We've had, I can't give you all the details on this matter, but we've had an incident in a different area of town about maybe 7 years ago or so. A young boy riding his skateboard downhill, they found it really challenging and they liked that, right? So they were just riding their skateboard downhill, and then there's a pickup truck owned by a landscaper driving at regular speed on the major road, and the kid on his skateboard was riding downhill. The kid actually hit the car.
I remember that.
See, I'm not saying that's what happened here.
Yeah.
But we can only do so much. Like I've said, we have shared responsibilities. We will do the best we can because we strongly believe, I got kids. We don't want anything like that to happen to anybody, but we have shared responsibilities and we do the best we can. We provide the crosswalk. We provide the blinking devices. We do all sorts of things. But if it's not going to be used in the middle of the night and you cross the street, it's hard to see. I'm not making excuses, right?
Yeah.
Can you, it's very unfortunate. It's very sad. And it's not just the family of that person who got killed. What about the driver?
Community.
The driver who hit, the people I know who hit someone, they cannot drive for years. The trauma that they went through, none of this is intended by anybody. So we do the best we can with the tools we have, but we have to take shared responsibility.
Ian, Jean wanted to kind of give some input and not able to raise the hand. Could we? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I do have Jean unmuted.
And I think Jean would be the last person because we do have a request to return back to the main room. So Donna, please prepare your script. We would, since we have nominated you, but Jean, go ahead.
Well, I live on the corner of East Avenue and Hillcrest, the southeast corner. I'm a senior and I walk a lot to town and around the neighborhood for my exercise. And I gotta tell you, the sidewalks from Hillcrest down into town are lousy. There's lots of offsets, there's lots of cracks. Somebody allowed utility people to put telephone poles right in the middle of the sidewalks. And if you were walking at night, the lighting isn't good enough. Most of us seniors would probably be tripping and falling all over the place if very many people really wanted to walk at night. So We got a lot of work to do to improve the walking conditions of the sidewalk, which is no big deal. The other thing is, I think that I used to ride my bike to the lab a lot in the old days, but since we can't find an alternate vehicle road to go from downtown to the lab, we got to find an alternate first-class bike path that runs parallel to East Avenue. Part of it exists about 1,000 feet south of East Avenue now that without not very much could take the bicycle traffic safely completely off East Avenue and let them use that in a safe and effective manner.
Thank you.
And comments.
And Jean, you also mentioned street lights, and we are conducting a survey for the existing street lights through the corridor, and we will be sharing that with everyone through our portal, which is the website. But stay tuned, it's underway. So we are going to look into that analysis. And with that, I'm sorry, Aiden and Donna, we need to go to the main room. So can we please go back to the main room? Ian, could you please help us get back to the main room?